Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lurking for Legends, a live video cast, where we talk with people from all walks of the publishing industry. I'm Christy Stratus. I am a historical suspense and historical fantasy author, and my awesome co-hosts are epic fantasy author Richard H. Stevens and science fiction author David M. Kelly. Lurking
Right.
for Legends is an interactive broadcast, and we encourage viewers to chime in with questions for our guests or comment on anything you hear in the show. And before we even get started, it's worth saying that this is our 99th episode. Wow. Our 100th is coming up, and this is the last author interview that we will be doing. So our guest tonight is like the luckiest person ever because he's the last person that we will be interviewing.
He's
So
blessed.
we will be going forward with once a month live reads, the second Tuesday of every month. So you will still see us going live with like the best stuff because this is what people really, really look forward to the most.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, people definitely enjoy the author interviews, but they love the live reads. So that is what we're going to be switching to. So with that said, how is everyone doing tonight? What have we all been up to during the week? David, what have you been up to?
I've been trying to recover from most of my bruising. My dog's had me over several times, and it's hurt. He's actually in the bad books today because he took things off the counter that he should not have touched.
No.
So yes, he's sulking at the moment. But apart from that, I've been planning some well, not planning and researching some things for my next book series, which I'm going to start writing very soon now, which will be in the same universe, but kind of like further on in the future. And so I'm kind of like planning out how the societies and the various groups have changed in the meantime. So it's quite involved and quite interesting playing with, what could be sort of thing. So that's what I've been doing. And I did get some feedback from my external editor just on the first read, and she said the third Logan book was very good. So
awesome.
That's always reassuring.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure.
That's great. That's great.
So that's going to be carry on as a Joe Ballin's Prodigies or like children's one?
No, it will be a completely different set of characters, completely different sort of style of book. It will be kind of like a more sort of sci-fi military kind of series.
Ooh, cool.
So there might be kind of like sons of and daughters of and what have you, well, grandsons and granddaughters of, but there won't be kind of like main characters. It's not it won't be sort of son of Logan or son of Joe kind of thing. It's if there are characters like that, and they'll be sort of somewhat secondary.
Awesome.
That's really cool.
So yeah, the David Kelly cinematic universe expands yet again.
That's perfect.
That's great.
How about you, Christy?
Oh, me second.
Yes.
I wasn't ready. So Corrupted Magic, as always, the next episode has gone live. On Friday, woohoo! And on Monday it was Kindle Vella. So this one is episode 28, and it's called Duplicate Deception. And so in this one we discover, more of the Grimoire Assassin's House magical traps. And they are both deadly and confusing. So you'll have to see what exactly I mean by that by reading the episode. And I did finish writing, but not editing, episode 33. So, I finished it a lot faster than 32. I had a much easier time with this one. And I was able to, I tend to I don't know about you guys, but I sometimes tend to fall back into that perfectionist tendency where you start being like, I don't know if that's right. No, I don't want to write that. That's not good enough or something. And I was doing that with the last episode a little bit too much. And so I kind of pulled myself out of that for this one. And so it went a lot faster, which was great. So I'll be editing that this week, and then I will be writing episode 34 after that. So that is really what's been I think that's it. Yeah, that's been what's going on with me. How about you, Richard?
Yeah, not a lot. Just writing When Legends Rise. I'm almost 150 pages in. I just pulled it up now. I couldn't remember where I am, but I'm starting to get some more writing done over the last couple of weeks, which is good. And I want to release that book this year, sooner than later, but I don't want to rush it at the same time. So it's about 150 pages in, so it's probably about a quarter of the way through. And I like how the story's going. I like how the new characters are developing. So I'm getting excited. And I've actually kind of not just pants this book. I've kind of half plotted it. So I have a sheet, a working sheet that sits on my other monitor and shows what I want to include in certain chapters. What a difference that makes to writing, though. All of a sudden you're just filling in the blanks in your bullet points, and it can certainly make it a little bit quicker. Yeah, so I kind of like that, but that's generally not how I write. I generally just pants it, but I'm into the fourth book, so there's so many things that I know I want to cover, so I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget them. But that's about all that's new with me. But so let's bring our guest in, and Warren is here. I'll bring him in here.
All right.
Welcome, Warren, to our 99th episode.
Hey, hello, and I do feel blessed. I do feel lucky. But as I was saying to Richard before we started, that I hope people don't think that I broke the show and that you think, oh my God, he's been on the show, he's broken it, we're not doing this anymore.
That's right, yeah.
Well, we figured once we have Warren come on, we can't top that, so why even?
Oh, that's the very generous way of looking at it. Thank you. And also thank you to the viewers. So I do appreciate anyone who's tuning in to check out what I might have to say. Let's hope I don't let you down.
Yeah, we generally have viewers come in throughout the show and then they leave again, and then we post it and you post it, and a lot of viewers.
Oh no! Once they join, they will not be able to leave. I'll make sure. I'll try.
You're setting up some deadly trap behind.
Well, I am. Yeah. And I watched one of your other episodes, and I thought, oh my God, these or a couple of them, and I thought these people are quite prolific and they're quite accomplished. I thought, oh wow, I'm just.
Well, I've been pulling the wool over your eyes. I don't know about the other
two. I hope I can measure up.
I'm sure you can.
Absolutely. So you may recognize Warren because he was on one of our live reads, and we had so much fun. I don't know if you guys remember that episode, but if we were to bring it up again, you would remember it. It was really a fun episode. We had a great time reading from his book, which he will tell us all about. And in case you don't remember him, he's a sci-fi author. So why don't you introduce yourself for anybody who was not at that live read?
My name is Warren Shepherd, of course. I am a sci-fi author. I have my... Oh, look at this. I didn't notice. There's a copy of it right there. Oh, what a coincidence. Sex, Bugs, and UFOs.
And a wormhole, I think.
Yes. It's my debut book. It was published by Mirror World Publishing last July. Of course, I thought it would take off like gangbusters, but I know it doesn't work that way. It was a long process. It's been a lifetime process. As you can tell, I'm not a kid, but I sort of come at writing sideways, I think, creeping up on it throughout life. Thank you for putting that up. And I've done a lot of things over my life unrelated to writing, but writing has always been sort of a underlying thread, say, running through my life. Yeah. I don't know how much history you want, but I could go back to my childhood.
Tell us everything we want to know about all your childhood.
I'm sure you do. But it does begin with my mom. My mom makes, of course, the dedication, because she was the one that sort of instilled a love of reading, of creating. I used to draw, of using your imagination, and I think that's so important. Just to start off with that sort of foundation. And I hope people are teaching their kids to read at a very early age. I hope it's not a dying art, if you will. But I think kids need to have their imagination sparked, and that's what happened to me. And so that's basically my beginning. I mean, there was certainly many stops along the way. So.
Wonderful. I love this cover too. It really stands out. It looks just so good. I love it.
It was very hard to come across because I don't know if I can say, but it started off with a stock cover design. Mm-hmm. And it was very, so many of them look like they're stock covers. This one sort of captured the essence of the story, a little bit whimsical, a little bit, there's a mystery, there's aliens, of course, and of course, sex sells, sex and bug sell.
I love the subtitle on that. It says in space no one can hear you whinge, and having read the book, it's like I can understand exactly where that came from.
Again, I sort of wanted to capture that little bit of whimsy, but also some real mystery, because I think I submitted. Excuse me. The submission process, it took a long time, and of course I went into it with a lot of naivety, I guess, thinking I remember my first thoughts were, well, I'm going to only submit to UK publishers, because Canadian publishers are kind of, can I say small fry? I don't know if they're watching. Is anyone watching? Small fry. But I felt like they were not going to have the scope that I wanted. And I thought, oh no, of course I'm going to get a UK publisher. Who wouldn't? Of course, it took a couple of years, I think, and whittling down and changing my view on that, and realizing that, oh, I've got to readjust my my goals here, because I don't think I'm being realistic. And of course, when you make all these submissions, as I know one publisher thought, well, it's not funny enough to be a farce. I said, well, it's not supposed to be a farce.
Yeah.
It's a sci-fi adventure that has humor in it, I hope. But yeah, it's not a farce. And indeed, it did start out. I was heavily influenced by Douglas Adams when I was young. The Hitchhiker's Guide books, major influence on my creativity, I guess. So I think initially I did start out with, I want to do something in that vein. And I didn't consciously change the tone. The tone changed itself. And I wanted to have humor, and I thought, well, but I don't have his skill for satire. That takes some real, maybe things I don't have. And I didn't want to imitate him anyway, but I thought, all of a sudden I realized, well, this isn't the comedy I thought it was going to be. It's not as off the walls I thought it was going to be, and it turned into its own thing. And that's how I found my voice, if you will. And it became more of a sci-fi adventure with humor thrown in. And I think that's the best kind of thing, where you can blend, and I hope I did it successfully, but where you can blend humor and tension and drama and pathos and everything, and you can sometimes do it like that. And David might know, I think the Brits excel at this. In their drama, they can write something that's sad, or a mystery that's brutal, and then there's some black humor thrown in, and it fits. It's not jarring, it doesn't seem out of place, but they seem to excel at that. And growing up in England, I think that influenced me a lot too. So all of that, I think, made it into the book.
I think you're right there, Warren. I think kind of, for whatever reason, I'm not quite sure, but I think British people, authors, I think they tend to sort of almost specialize in this kind of, changing the mood very quickly, but very, very purposefully and in a very sort of polished way. I think, well, I try to do it in my own books. It's like there's a lot of humor and action and so on in my books, but every now and then, there's something comes in where it's kind of like, it's very dark and very serious. And then other bits, it's like, you're kind of doing something that's very dark and very serious, and suddenly there's like this humor comes in, and it's like, it is, I think, something that British authors particularly have a tendency to do.
because that's what's real. That's real life. That's you could
I was
be.
just going to say that is what life is all about.
Yeah,
Right?
you could be, at a funeral, but then something will trigger a funny memory or something, or that's how life works. It's when somebody sticks on this path. No, I'm a serious book, and I'm going to be down. I'm going to be, morose or whatever. It's like, okay, that's a bit one note, and you want your characters to feel like they're real, like what they're saying is something that somebody might really say, no matter what the setting, well, no matter where you are in space or in a Victorian thriller. Or...
Yeah.
So we have a question from Hillary. She says, "Do you have
Hello, Hillary?
A sequel to the book?"
I do, and I'm already working on it. It's going a bit slowly. I mentioned in the library that there will be pirates. There are pirates,
Right.
because I've always wanted to incorporate space pirates.
That's cool.
But I don't want them one-note pirates. They've got to have some dimension. So yes, the sequel is underway, but I've, as you know, real life intrudes. I'm working on some other things that I can't dedicate. Like I can't write full time. I've got to earn a living, and I'm working on things that might change my path, and that's taking a lot of mental and creative energy right now. So unfortunately, the book is taking a bit of a backseat, but it's always going on. I mean, no matter, you guys know as writers that no matter what you do, you could be, you're cooking in the background. I think Richard, in a previous show, you said that you were walking home and you had some ideas and you had to get home and write them down. I mean, it's
Yep, that's
always,
correct. That happens to me all the time. Yeah.
yeah, and you hear a snippet of conversation somewhere, and all of a sudden that's an idea, or you see an element and you think, oh, how can I use that in a different way, just from some other story? And so yeah, you're always cooking.
Oh, absolutely. I can't believe how much stuff that I've thought of and I have lost because I haven't written it down in time or done something and acted on in time. And when I'm thinking about it, it's absolutely brilliant in my mind anyway. And and by the time I get to actually write it down, it's not there. I just don't have the mood of it anymore. It just doesn't. It's not as poignant as it was when you were first dreaming it up. You go, "Wow, this is amazing! I can't wait to get this in there," and then you forget about it. And when you come back to it, it's like trying to recall your dream after about 5 minutes of waking.
Yeah, and the worst time is at night.
You don't remember much of it anymore, even though the dream is so like it woke you up in a start. And oh my god!
Well, that's why. Sorry, go ahead. No, I was just going to say that's what you do. I do at night. I try and put my mind in the story to get to fall asleep. And of course, you're concocting ideas and you're thinking, oh, yeah, I'm going to remember that for sure. Oh, that dialogue. Oh, that's great dialogue. I'll remember that.
There's no way you're going to forget
it.
No.
And then in the morning, it's like, I'll never remember how that sounded. It sounded great. Maybe it wasn't great. Like you say, maybe.
maybe your brain's doing you a favor. Not letting you remember it.
That's so funny. That happens to me so many times, and it has happened so many times. And now I really try hard to write this stuff down. So I've lost too many things. But you're comfortable in bed. You're comfortable.
I've even tried the voice recorder idea.
Yeah.
But then you listen to the playback in the morning and think, "What are you talking about? You're mumbling? Were you awake?" So no.
How much were you drinking last night?
Yeah, that doesn't work either. So,
so the lead character in Sex, Bugs and UFOs, Morrissey, he's definitely shall we say, a fish out of water.
Yes.
And in your bio, you talk about your move from UK to Canada and how it left you with something of a sense of alienation. And for Morrissey, it is quite literally alienation.
Yes.
So was that kind of like a very strong influence in the book, or was it just kind of like an accident?
No, absolutely. And I think, like I say, it's been a long process over a lifetime, and you don't realize the influences that certain events have. But then I noticed a pattern of being a fish out of water. So yes, 7 years old, came to Canada. People make fun of your accent. And of course,
accent?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So at school, so you go to school, you get teased about your accent. Then you say, okay, I'm going to blend in at school. So you switch to a Canadian accent. You go home, you get made fun of for switching to the Canadian accent. So you lead this double life. And that, God knows what that's done to my mental state over how many, I won't say how many decades, but many decades. But yeah, sort of living this sort of split life. But it leaves you with the feeling where you don't belong. And I think I said one foot in either world, but belonging in neither. And that's pretty much how I feel. And even now, I mean, maybe this will turn into a therapy session, but even now, I don't feel like I fit. I don't feel Canadian. I don't feel completely English, although I'm still a British citizen. I'm not a Canadian citizen. I'm legal.
What?
Don't call the authorities. But
What?
yeah, I don't feel.
I see some guys in uniforms behind you.
Yeah, yeah. If you suddenly lose the feed, you'll know why.
I think it's amazing that you mentioned that you tried to change your accent as soon as you got here, because as a Canadian, I love hearing the British Isles accents, whether it be Irish, Scottish, or all the different dialects in England. There seem to be so many, and the same is true of Scotland as well. But my wife, she emigrated when she was 15, and that was the first thing she did was lose her accent, because she just felt like she was centered out in high school, and she said it was the worst.
It is, because it is kids are horrible, right?
Yeah. Kids are the coolest people.
When you're 7 years old, you and all you want to do is fit in and not be you don't want to stand out in the crowd. I think I make a mention of that in the book, that Morrissey had avoided the bully because there were plenty of other victims further down the food chain. So that that's sort of the goal, is to stay out of the sight of people who like. And also, I guess it helped me. I'm an observer, and I observe people, and I am fascinated with not just what people do, but why they do the things they do. So I am an introvert. It's very hard to push out of my shell, and it's become to the point where people don't believe I'm an introvert because I push out of my shell. But then you think, well, where does the line, where do you become this new person that is no longer the introvert? But it is still always a struggle. So as an introvert, I'm always watching. I'm watching people and listening to people, and makes you a good sort of judge of human behavior. And again, why do people do the things they do? And that hopefully will translate into believable characters. But yeah, I try to stay out of the limelight. That's why I'm not good at networking. I'm terrible at schmoozing. And I hate small talk at parties. So that's me in a nutshell.
Welcome to the world of an author.
Yeah, it's a very common trait, I understand. So
yeah, very common trait.
Have you interviewed authors that aren't introverts?
Yes.
And
I think our very first interview, I believe, was he certainly did not strike me as an introvert at all. He was a full-blown extrovert. Like he was very easy to talk to, and it was just he wasn't an introvert at all.
Successful? Was he like in the field?
Actually, I don't know.
He seemed to be doing okay for himself.
I'm just wondering if that's part of the.
He was an indie. He's still. I think he's an indie author, but he seemed to be doing okay. I wouldn't say he's Stephen King status, but he seemed to be doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah, there are plenty of authors though that are introverts. And like I'm thinking of a particular romance author that I work with, and she really is an introvert. She hates doing anything on a screen. She's made it really, really well. She writes romance. She follows the trends. Of course, that's perfect. But it took her a long time. It took her, I don't even know how many years. I think she started doing video only with TikTok, and it was after TikTok had been out for a while. She didn't really need to, but she started doing it just to, get a new audience in as well. So, I mean, there is hope for people who really don't want to do in-person events or even video. Some people just don't feel comfortable,
Well, even this, I was like, when I stepped outside of myself, I thought, yeah, I can go on this, be interviewed by 3 intimidating authors. But then every once in a while, I think, what the hell am I doing? you put, and this is live, right? It's not like you're gonna
That's right. No, it's
record
live.
it and edit it and take out all
Right.
the parts that make me look like an idiot. But anyway, so
Yeah.
No, but that's the thing we have to do as authors, especially as unknown authors or indie authors, that we have to step outside of our comfort zone in order to get ourselves known out there, because people don't know who Richard H. Stevens is, and then unless I start doing stuff that I'm not comfortable doing, they're never going to know about me. So it all depends on what you want to do with your book and how successful you want it to be. We all dream of that Netflix deal or movie deal coming in, but that's like winning a lottery. The odds of that happening are realistically not going to happen, but it doesn't mean that you can't try.
I don't know if you noticed when I was tweeting out about this event tonight, I attached James Gunn and Stephen Merchant to the, because why not? What?
Yeah.
You never know. What if he sees it and says,
No, for sure, yeah, absolutely.
check that out. And Stephen Merchant, I've tweeted at him a number of times, only because Dave, you might know that one of the characters is written for him. He'd be perfect for, and I sent the little trailer saying starring Stephen Merchant. He would be perfect as one of the characters. And what if you could just look at it and read it or retweet it, it would be amazing.
No, absolutely. You never know who's actually gonna respond. I've heard so many different authors saying that they reached out to someone and they got letters back from them, whatever. When I was doing the show, when we were starting to get it ready, I reached out to Stephen King. I reached out to J.K. Rowling. I reached out to Brandon Sanderson. I reached out to R.A. Salvatore, Terry Brooks, who's my favorite author. J.K. Rowling's handler said no. At least they're decent.
Oh, at least you got something.
At least they got back. R.A. Salvatore, who is very popular in the fantasy realms, especially in the D&D realms, he actually inboxed me and we had a conversation through Messenger. So he was decent enough just to say, "Look, I'm just too busy." He's like traditionally published and everything else. So he's a big wig, but he was decent enough to actually talk to me. And you just never know. You gotta just throw stuff at the wall and hopefully something will stick.
And I did tag John Scalzi as well on the latest one, because he's on his blog. He has a feature called The Big Idea that every once in a while he'll showcase. Maybe it's every month. He'll showcase an author. So you submit to, and it doesn't have to be a known author. He'll just whether it's him or a team that will sort of scrutinize your application. And if they decide that you've got a theme that maybe he wants to showcase, you write a little blog post for his blog, and look at the exposure you would get. Now, I did get as far as a response from him saying, "Okay, great, thanks, we'll be in touch," but he never was. So, but that would have been great.
No, absolutely. But he would never get in touch with if you didn't reach out to him at all. So
yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, Christy.
No. I was just saying, you just never know, and it can never hurt to try all of these things. There's going to be something that comes through at some point. It's going to happen.
It's going to persevere. Yeah, absolutely.
So you had said something about, of course, as soon as I think of sci-fi humor, I think like most people, we think of Douglas Adams, he's up here in the sci-fi humor stuff. And you had said you basically started out with the idea that maybe your book would be something along those lines, maybe. But you said you found your writing voice by allowing it to kind of develop. For people, like allowing your story to develop and writing it the way, I guess, the way it was coming, did you sort of start writing it that way and then it didn't feel right and you went back and rewrote, or did you just go through the whole thing and then rewrite it? How did you handle that process?
No, I think it wasn't a conscious decision. It was setting out with the intent to make it a comedy.
Okay.
But as I wrote more and as the story developed, it was more serious. And I realized, this isn't the comedy I thought it was. These themes, of course, there was a lot of rewriting, but not to consciously change it from a comedy. It was just, it's something that evolved, and it became a more serious beast kind of thing. And I think I'm not an outliner. But I also I don't fly by the seat of my pants. I I sort of had an idea, but it did change quite a bit. And as I got into the more serious themes, and it's violent. There's violence in it, and I didn't want to tone that down. There's some adult situations. It's not alien porn, despite the title, but there's some adult situations. So it just started to take on a different tone, and then I realized, I'm not Douglas Adams. I cannot be. The guy was brilliant, and satire is a very difficult thing to do right, and you really got to know. You really got to know your stuff in order to introduce ideas and have people go, I know what he's doing. So I just decided, okay, this isn't me, so I'll be myself. And that's myself. That book is myself. And I know you're not supposed to sort of self-insert. Obviously, the character of Morrissey has got a lot of me in him, but and that limits you if you think that's just you. So you've got to step back and say, okay, that's not me. What else can he do? He's got to be, maybe he can be a bit of a dick sometimes, but that could be me as well. Who knows? But so it was quite a natural evolution, not a conscious one.
Yeah.
So the title itself intrigues me. And is that a title that was dreamt up before the book, during the book, or did it come after the book? And how did those three words actually jump onto the cover itself?
Well, it's funny. I don't actually, because it's been such a long process, I don't really remember when it happened, but it's obviously a play on sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And of course the cadence, sex, bugs, and UFOs, and I thought it captures the tone perfectly. Because the book has a bit of everything. It's got a little bit of whimsy in the title. The subtitle has a bit of whimsy in it, but hopefully it'll also capture a little bit of the seriousness as well. So I wish I could remember when it hit me. But then, of course, setting up the titles for there's 2 sequels planned. So setting up the titles, now I'm trying to come up with other similar plays on words. I kind of have titles planned out, but we'll see. They might change.
It's certainly unique. And it's funny because I Googled Amazon.com. I always do go .com just because it's where it's at. And your book shows sex, bugs, and UFOs, and the book that populates right below it is Alien Space Tentacle Porn.
So I'm in good company.
Yes. Yeah. Well, he's got good reviews too. Yeah.
Hey, let me write that one down.
and that's not why I looked it up. I just
no, of course not. You weren't looking.
But I know when I dream up a book title, I will Google it just to make sure that no one else has it. And there's a lot of times that someone will have it, but it has nothing to do with the genre. It was released in 1950, whatever, so it's not going to mess with things. But the book I'm writing now, When Legends Rise, I originally wanted to call Heavy as the Crown. And so I Googled that, and sure enough, there was a book written in 2018. It was fantasy called Heavy as a Crown. I thought, well, that's pretty too close to use that name.
Well, so this brings up an interesting point, because I see so many authors posting like how do you come up with your titles, and for fantasy especially, especially with Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, it gets a bit tedious when it's always that same rhythm. It's always a something of something where you can, and they become so interchangeable. So as a fantasy author, that must be very difficult to come up with something that sounds unique and yet says what you want it to say.
Well, especially I want to put the word dragon in it, because I figured if the word dragon is in the title, dragon lovers are going to gravitate towards that book more than if it says Keeper of the Jewel. Because Keeper of the Jewel, they don't, is there dragons in that? I don't know. You have to read to find out. But you try to type anything, dragon, anything, and someone's already got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's not easy.
And there have been books with the same title.
Absolutely. There's lots of them out there, so it's not.
But obviously that's not a goal, and I figured this was a safe bet. Nobody would have this.
I want, if someone knows that I write Dragon Sect, and that's CT.
Not
Dragon Sex. Although I'd probably sell more if I wrote Dragon Sex.
maybe.
It'll be right beside Alien Space Tentacle Porn. But
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
That was something with my series. It's like with Quillenction. It's like I figured, yeah, I'm pretty safe with that.
Yeah. That's
No,
funny.
absolutely. You went through that because you had it as Logan's World, and then realized
It
that
was supposed to be Logan's World.
there's actually
And
a cult
then,
following for Logan's World. And
yeah,
so when
I
people
knew about
actually-
Logan's Run. I didn't know about Logan's World. So, yeah.
And that would be awful because people would Google that, find your book, buy it, and say, "Well, this has nothing to do with what I'm." And all of a sudden, you get these bad reviews, even though the book isn't bad. It's just not what they're looking for, and they're upset.
Yeah, it's not worth the risk.
No, absolutely not, for sure.
Yeah. I always like asking sci-fi authors how much of their book is based on actual science versus, something that theoretically could be possible. How is that for you?
That's a good question because I am not a scientist. So everything has to be researched. You do want it to have a believability. So as with any world you create, whether it be fantasy or science fiction, set your ground rules and stick to them. So make up your science if you have to, but try and you live within it. So that people don't say, wait a minute, you said that, but now this. And then it just becomes, like in science fiction, then it becomes magic. And I guess mine is not, obviously mine's not hard sci-fi, but it's not as fantasy as Star Wars, I would say. It's, you try and, for what you can. I mean, I don't know how many times I tried to research a believable version of hyperspace that I could, how can I stick to that? How can I use that? How can I make it my own? So I think I tried to, I created something that is unique, but also familiar, because people also, you want to use terminology that people will say, oh yeah, I kind of know what that is. You don't have to explain everything.
Sure.
So yeah, a lot of it is made up science, but I tried to make it sound believable. And in book 2, you're developing a little more because, well, I won't give anything away, but there's more backstory to the hyperspace lanes, let's say.
Cool.
And
cool.
Space Pirates.
And space pirates.
Space pirates, yeah.
Yes. That's always a good thing.
That's gonna have to be a live read. I'm sorry, you're just gonna commit to that.
We'll see. Actually, yeah, we'll see.
Wow.
So you started that book, obviously.
Yes, it's I don't know, about 15,000 words maybe into it. So I'm having too good a time right now with space pirates that I don't seem to want to leave them. I know everybody's got their own techniques. They say just write and edit later. And some people sort of, no, I want it perfect before you move on. But I'm sort of in between where I have to at least get it to a stage where it's not going to be perfect, but at least I know, okay, I can leave this now. And I feel comfortable with, it's not set, the cement isn't set, but at least it's starting to set. So I can walk away and go to the next step. Whereas I can't just write and fly through the whole book, because I know that, well, how can I write that down there when I'm not sure if that's going to stay yet? And I know everyone's different. Everybody's got their own writing style, their own techniques. And whenever I see people saying, oh, well, how do you do this and how do you do that? It's so difficult to give advice because everyone does it differently. What works for me may not work for you. And I doubt it would work for anyone else, because it's all with the chaos that's up here.
Yeah,
trying to make sense of that.
Yeah.
No, we're all different. And I think that's what makes our stories unique.
Yes. And you can almost tell when somebody's too almost self-conscious in their writing style. Like it's even like you see a lot of sometimes self-published books, but even published, traditionally published, where it feels stilted. The language feels stilted, and you just and you think, well, what? I don't know if they ever let loose, if they ever did, find their voice, and that puts me off. I have a very hard time finding books that I enjoy reading. It's nothing. I feel like it's a flaw in my own makeup. And that's why I want to write my own, because I couldn't find the stuff I wanted to read.
Which
Yeah, I
is a
think our
great
habits,
reason to
I
write.
think our habits change as we get older. A couple of my go-to authors, their latest books, I did not finish either one of them, and I was quite disappointed because I've read everything that they write, and all of a sudden I'm just finding myself, I just can't get into this anymore.
Do you think it's you that's changed or them?
Well, I know the one he's actually changed himself to first-person present tense.
I hate
And
first person.
I do not like first-person present tense at all. It drives me insane.
It doesn't feel natural at all.
I know I don't like it at all. So, and that's just my preference. Obviously, a lot of people like it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have wrote it that way. But he must be trying his hand at doing it. But he's got great acclaim because of this book. But I can't do it.
Well, this might be blasphemy, but I don't enjoy Stephen King books. I love his book on writing. I think that's brilliant. But his actual novels, I mean, granted, I haven't read a lot of them, but I've tried to, and I just find I don't like his dialogue. Maybe it's he was of a certain time, and now I just feel like I don't think people speak that way.
Mm-hmm.
I hope he's not watching.
It's okay, Stephen.
Yeah.
Yeah. He doesn't mean it.
You smooth talk him later, will you?
No, it's interesting you say that because I've tried to read J.R. Tolkien, Lord of the Rings. I love that series, and I'm reading it. I tried to read it a couple of years ago just to look through it, and I couldn't get in it anymore just because the writing style is so different.
It is.
And I remember reading it, and I absolutely loved it. It was like my favorite book for the longest time. And so, but I've changed. Writing styles have changed, and we've adapted with them as we change with them as we go along. And all of a sudden, you go back to look at the other stuff, and go, that's not written very well. And it probably was written very well for this time. It's just different now. So,
well, back to like especially science fiction, a lot of the classics, sort of info dumps, and it's like I don't think people can tolerate that anymore. And they maybe
it's not there. No.
Yeah. Now, my first, I remember the first book series I loved as a kid was the Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. I grew up with that, and I read them over and over and over again, and that's what got me into believing in, that anything was possible, and the desire to create other worlds. Then my brother gave me the Lord of the Rings books as a Christmas gift, and it was so jarring to go from that to the Lord of the Rings that it was like so dense, and I wasn't ready for it at the time. So yeah, things change, your tastes change, and
no, absolutely. So Warren, I wanted to say thank you for being on our show. The time's gone by really quickly. Enjoyed talking to you, and thank you for being our very last author interview. That's
well, thank you all for having me, all three of you, and it's an honor. And I don't know if I should do some sort of fancy dismount for the last show.
Yes, do it.
No, but I don't want to pull a muscle.
At least a dance. Come on.
No. I'm hooked up to too many wires here.
Before we let you go, I just want to ask you a couple questions. You said your Space Pirates is your next book. You're writing it now, and you're just saying that life is getting in the way. Do you have a release date in mind? Do you have something that you're shooting for, or is it just when it happens, it happens?
No, I was hoping to get it out this year, but I can't see that happening.
Realistically, no.
No, I mean, the publisher, as they want me to obviously keep them apprised of how things are going. Amira will, thank you very much. But yeah, unless I can really kick things into gear. I mean, it is only end of January, so
you got lots of time.
Yeah,
Next thing you know, it's December. What the heck?
Yeah.
If I go at the same pace as the first one, it'll, I'll see you in a decade. But yeah, hopefully, if not this year, then next year. So for the 6 fans I have, I hope you can hang on. It's coming.
You got 6 already. Holy cow.
Unless I blew it and I've lost one.
Wow. So, and where can we find your books? Obviously, Dave's got your
anywhere.
website going across the screen there. But are you exclusive to Amazon, or are you
Amazon, everywhere, Barnes and Noble, anywhere you want. All the usual places, and the Mirror World website.
Right.
So available in all the formats, hard, paperback. So whatever you fancy, it's all appreciated and enjoy. I hope people enjoy it. I mean, obviously, you want to entertain people. You want to keep them. You want to have them say, "Yeah," and it just takes the right pair of eyes to get, to spread the word, to read it, spread the word, and hopefully one day the word will be spread.
Yep. No, you just got to persevere. It's a marathon, not a sprint. Absolutely. So,
yeah.
Anyway, thank you again for being on the
show. Just one thing before you go.
That was for you, Dave.
Thanks, Warren. So just one thing before you go.
Yes.
Who would play Kiki in the movie other than Richard?
I he was. That role. That's my role.
Well, I've gone through several iterations, sort of unknowns, relative unknowns. But if you go to my website, right there, you'll see the trailer, I think, that has my choices for who would star.
Oh, cool. There you go.
And I'm taking auditions.
For the trailer.
What's that?
You didn't reach out for me.
Yeah, if you want to audition, feel free.
I've already auditioned.
If you would like to make another audition,
please, no.
Yes.
No, that's great. Before we go, you can, if you don't mind hanging on with us for a second, This is the part of the show where I generally break in and introduce next week's guest. We do not have a guest per se next week. We will be joined by special guest authors J.D. Estrada and Maggie Lynn Heron-Heidel. They're going to be our guest readers for next week's show. And I want Dave, if you don't mind, let the people know what we're actually doing next week, who we're reading from, and
what are we doing?
I can't remember the name.
What are we doing? I'm not saying the name. No, I'm not saying the name.
So next week we're reading from The Importance of Being Earnest, which is a classic comedy of manners. And we'll be dressing up in Victorian costumes. Richard is going to be dressing up as a Victorian dame.
So just another Tuesday night.
Just a regular Tuesday night. No, sorry, you're not a dame this time, are you?
No, I'm not. No.
You're Ernest.
But I'm ready. I've shaved because I actually shaved my goatee. I had a goatee on, and I had to shave it for Warren's show. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm Ernest.
You're Ernest.
Oh, okay. I better read my parts. Actually, it's funny because I went out to a thrift store and I bought this old jacket that I would never wear. It's a dinner jacket. So I figured
you're Ernest and I'm Ernest. That's the whole kind of like the whole sort of comedy of this thing is like we're both basically pretend to be Ernest.
Okay.
Because it's important.
It's important.
I did read it. I'm just kidding you. But yeah, no, I went out and got some parts. I still have to go out and get a couple of props, but
I can't wait.
I'll be tuning in for sure. It's
good.
It should be good. That's how we're going to celebrate our 100th episode. And then from that point forward, if you think that your next book is ready for a live read, reach out to me and we'll get you
absolutely
into the schedule and we'll get you on there. Like Christy said at the beginning of the show, it's going to be the second Tuesday of every month. Right. We'll invite a couple guest authors in with us and we'll do live reads of their works and one of ours. And we'll dress up and have a lot of fun. So
excellent.
So
all right.
And before we sign off, again, I know I said this last week and I want to say it this week. I'll say it again next week. Thank you very much to Christy and Dave for being co-hosts with me for 99 episodes. It's been amazing. We've had a lot of fun over the last couple of years, and hopefully have a lot of fun going forward again with these live reads. But thank you. I couldn't have done the show without you guys, especially at the beginning, because like I am an introvert, like you were mentioning, Warren, and there's no way I would get on here without having the support of either Christy or Dave, just to be there when I'm kind of stuttering and not knowing what question to ask. So thank you very much for supporting my vision of the show, and thank you for being such a big part of it. I appreciate it.
That's really sweet. I think I might cry.
These guys made the show, so I very much appreciate you guys doing that, because it's a big commitment, even for you guys. Every Tuesday night it doesn't seem like much, but it's, it's 45 minutes, but it's more than 45 minutes because you're thinking about it beforehand. You're doing social media posts. You're setting aside time that you could be doing something else. And I appreciate your time and effort and everything you guys have done. So thank you again. And so I guess this is where I'll sign off. I'll stop rambling. So until we meet again, take good care, everybody. And hopefully see everybody for the importance of being earnest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Awesome.
All right. Take care, guys. Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.